My name is Dave and I'll be leading this training today. The intended audience for this training is for IntelleCheck end users and administrators. The goal of this training is to demonstrate the functionality of the IntelleCheck interface and to inform administrators of the options that are available to them. The objectives of this training are to describe IntelleCheck and its purpose, highlight the support options that are available for IntelleCheck, describe the different jobs that can be completed using the end user functions, go over troubleshooting common issues encountered while using IntelleCheck, and lastly, provide an overview of the options that are available for the administration of IntelleCheck. Let's begin with a description of IntelleCheck and how it works. IntelleCheck is a web-enabled tool that allows an end user to access IntelleCheck with a web browser. Through IntelleCheck, we can print custom checks, print and email direct deposit advices, create positive pay files, process electronic funds through HireOne, send copies of all of the above documents to a third-party imaging system, and create reports to investigate the status of your checking system. To launch your application, you will need to access the Maps eLauncher page using a web browser. This is the URL that I use to access all of the eVisions applications. Your Maps administrator will provide you with the URL that is used at your institution. It can be saved as a favorite or treated like any other website. First, we select the product we want to use. In this case, IntelleCheck. This will bring up the IntelleCheck start page. We click on the IntelleCheck power button to start the application. In this training, I'm using the Internet Explorer browser. eVisions products can also be launched from Firefox or Google Chrome browsers. I do want to warn you, however, that Google Chrome will be disabling MP API support in 2015. It will no longer be possible to use Java to launch Maps and the associated applications. In order to better support our users who prefer the Chrome browser, eVisions has added the option to launch without Java using the eVisions application launcher in Maps versions 4.5 and higher. For more information on this feature, please refer to the Maps 4.5 release guide or open a help desk ticket if you have any further questions. The eVisions application launcher will also be covered in the Maps online training. Here we have the IntelleCheck main menu, where we will start all of the end user tasks. In the bottom left-hand corner of the screen is information about IntelleCheck, including a link to support, a link to change passwords, the release notes, and version number. Be sure to contact your administrator about your organization's password policy before making a change to your password. The release notes show all the changes between the versions of IntelleCheck. Next, we will highlight the support options that are available for IntelleCheck. This is the page that gets brought up if you click on Support Website on the IntelleCheck bottom left-hand side of the screen. Some very helpful information can be found on these pages. We're going to go to Documentation and Software first. On this page, you can search by the product, document, type, and keywords. In the co-op user community, there is a link to the forums. There's a forum for all eVisions applications. We encourage you to visit this area to communicate and collaborate with other eVisions clients. In the top navigation pane, there's a link to the eVisions Help Desk. Help Desk is available to assist, consult, and work with you on any issues you may run into. Here we have our knowledge base. The knowledge base will help answer many common questions or issues. To use the knowledge base, you may navigate to the IntelleCheck section and select a subcategory, or use the search bar to search for errors or keywords. For example, here I will type in no checks appear, and then the search will return anything if anything similar is found. Going back to IntelleCheck, there's a help button on the bottom right-hand corner. This will become active and clickable in certain areas of IntelleCheck. You can also access this function by pressing the F1 key on your keyboard. This links to our web help, which may contain more detailed information on how to use a particular feature in IntelleCheck. Next, we will describe the different jobs that can be completed using the end-user functions. Processing payments through the Process Pending menu is the most common task used with IntelleCheck. Prior to entering the Process Pending menu, a normal check processing would need to be completed for your payments to be ready to print. These processes include the PHP checkle, FabCheckP, and FARTERed. These processes are modified from the Illusion baseline versions to be able to appear in IntelleCheck. So if you run the Illusion baseline version of these processes, they will not appear in IntelleCheck. I want to emphasize to not run the PHP update or FabCheck-A process until after you have finished printing and emailing your payments. These processes will clear the temporary tables and will prevent you from going back and making changes in the event of an error. We will click the Process Pending button and log in. The login information should be provided to you by your MAPS administrator. You will need to select a connection. If you do not see a connection that you should be using, you may need to click the refresh button for it to appear. Notice you must have your username and password entered prior to refreshing. These credentials are the same ones that will be used to log into all IntelleCheck processes. Once you're in the Process Pending menu, select the account you want to process payments for from the drop-down list. For this training, I'm going to use MN for almost all of these. From this screen, you can choose the batches to process. You can select multiple batches by using the Control and Shift functionality. We also have the Select All and Select None buttons. After selecting the batches to process, click the Next button in the bottom right-hand corner. The Payment Selection screen allows you to select payments from the selected batches. The default column sort order places the highest priority on the left and the lowest priority on the right. You can sort the column priority by dragging and dropping. The payments can be ordered by clicking on the column heading. IntelleCheck should remember your choices, so you will only have to do this one time. You can select multiple payments in the same manner that the batches were selected by using the Control or Shift keys, or the Select None or Select All buttons. After selecting the payments to process, click the Next button in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the selection summary screen. We can review the payments selected to confirm the number of each type and that the totals are correct. On the processing screen, we define our processing options for the different types of payments. The reasons for processing is automatically filled in with processed payments for the first time. Below, we have 4 tabs. First, the Checks tab is where we will process checks. Your processing options are No Processing, where check records will not be processed at all, and Print Only, where check records will be printed and then set as processed. When printing checks, you must specify the printer to use. The printers you have available are configured by your administrator. You may have permission to print to local and/or network printers. When printing a large number of checks, you may want to use load balancing. Select multiple printers and IntelleCheck will distribute the job accordingly. Be sure to select a printer with Micker toner to print checks. You may also print the file copies of checks. Select the checkbox and printer. For file copies, you may want to select a printer that does not use Micker toner. We can also create PDF file copies from this menu. We have two options when creating PDF file copies: individual files, which is one file for each payment, and single file, which is all payments in the run will be in one file. You can also password protect the PDF file. To preview the payment run before processing, you may choose the No Processing option and select Create PDF of File Copies. The next tab is the Direct Deposit tab. This tab allows you to process direct deposit advices. To prevent wasting Micker ink on direct deposits, select specific printers that do not have it. File copies and PDF of file copies work just the same as with the Checks tab. The Direct Deposit tab has an additional processing options. Like checks, there's no processing and print only. And once again, no processing will not process any direct deposit advices, while print only will print all the direct deposits and set them as processed. Then we also have email only, which will email advice and set the records as processed for those with an email address. All other records will not be processed. Email then print will email advice to records with an email address. The remaining direct deposit records without an email address will be printed, and all of the records will be set as processed. And lastly, we have the email and print option, which will email advices to records with an email address and print advices for all records. All of the records will be set as processed. The permission to send email must be granted by your administrator. When an email option is selected, the email properties and scheduling controls become active. The Email Properties section allows you to change the subject, body, and add additional attachments. Schedule Delivery On allows you to schedule the emails to be delivered at a specific date and time. This option is great to process records now, but schedule the devices to email on a later date or time. Next, the Hire One tab is where you go to finish processing Hire One payments. You can send the payment file to Hire One, print notices, and file copies of electronic payments. You will be prompted, "Are you sure you want to send the selected payments to Hire One?" Note that if you do not send the payment file to Hire One, the payments will remain in the Process Pending menu. Lastly is the Reporting tab. After most IntelleCheck tasks, you have the option to print a report after completion. Next, we're going to talk about the Reprocess menu. We will click the Reprocess button and log in. Once you are in the Reprocessing menu, select the account that you want to reprocess payments for from the drop-down list. You can narrow the return results by specifying a date range, check number range, pay name, or document type. I'm going to accept the defaults and return all checks that have processed. The payment selection screen allows you to select payments just like in Process Pending. This is the selection summary screen. We can review the payments selected to confirm the number of each type and that the totals are correct. This configuration screen is similar to the screen in the Process Pending menu. The only difference is the reasons for process is not automatically filled in. The reasons for reprocess is a required field. In the event of an audit, the auditor can see the reason for reprocessing. Maybe there was a paper jam or a student washed and ruined their checks. I will enter paper jam into this window. After entering a reason and selecting the printer options, the process button becomes available. We will then click Process to reprocess the payments. The next section is the Void menu. We will click the Void menu and log in. Once you're in the Void menu, select the account that you want to void payments for from the drop-down list. You can also narrow the return results by specifying a date range, check number range, pay name, or document type. I'm going to accept the default and return all checks. On the payment screen, we select the payments that we want to void. Now we click the Void button. Notice that it prompts us to add this entry to the next Positive Pay run. A Positive Pay run generates a file that contains details of legitimate checks that can be cashed. Since a check is being voided, you want to inform the bank about the voided check by adding it to your next Positive Pay run. We will discuss Positive Pay more in the next section. We will click Yes to add the entry to the next run. The check now says voided in the status column. To unvoid the check, click the record and then click the Unvoid button. Again, we are prompted to add this entry to the Positive Pay run, and we will again click Yes. Please note this important fact. If you void a check in IntelleCheck, it does not void the check in Banner. Consequently, if you do not void the check in Banner, the total in your Banner database will remain unchanged even though the check was voided. Always make sure to void checks in both places. Next, we are going to cover the Positive Pay section. Positive Pay is a process where a file is sent to the bank to prevent check fraud. The file has information about your checks so the bank can verify that the checks being deposited are legitimate. A Positive Pay file can be created by selecting Positive Pay on the main page or during the time of processing and reprocessing. So we click the Positive Pay button, we logged in using the credentials, and now we're going to select the account we want to work with from the drop-down list. For selection methods, we have three options. The first selects all processed checks that have not been sent to Positive Pay yet. The second is select from batches that have checks yet to be sent to Positive Pay. And third, select from all existing batches of checks. And that's the option I'm going to choose. As checks or batches are selected, the counts and amounts under the results are adjusted accordingly. To create the Positive Pay file, you would click the Generate button. Here, I am prompted for an administrative password. This means an IntelleCheck administrator set up a password to approve the file generation. They can also set up passwords for other actions, like process pending, reprocess, or void. To proceed with the file generation, have the appropriate user enter the password. Next, we'll talk about generating reports. We're going to click the Report button, log in, and select the account we want to work with. In the Report section, we have 7 different reports that can be run. Actions Audit allows the administrator to view actions users have initiated in IntelleCheck. For example, they can see who printed or reprocessed checks. Audit Control Report shows a list of the audit control numbers generated for each check printed. Check Register shows the status of payment batches. Summary Report prints a summary of selected batches. Such information as the number of and amounts of checks for each type of record. Void Check Register provides a list of voided checks. Check Register Invoice is useful for viewing statuses of statement batches. And lastly, we have the User Permissions Report, which displays the permissions for all users for the selected account. The most common report is the Check Register Report, so let's go ahead and take a closer look at that one. In this section, we can select our batches and select a sort order. If you have a very large number of batches available, you can use the start and end date selection fields to only display batches from a certain date range. I'm going to go ahead and select all on that. To select a sort order, you would check the override box down here. Click Preview for a preview screen of the check register report. This report shows you individual checks and the status for each batch that was selected. We can zoom in and out using these three buttons. We can scroll through the pages by selecting the thumbnails on the left-hand side. We can also use the arrows up at the top to scroll. The single arrow moves one check, and the double arrows moves from the first document to the last document. We can go directly to a page by entering the page number after we click this icon. We can search text by using the binocular function. We can also print and save the reports using these two buttons. These are standard reports. eVisions does have reporting software that will create custom reports called Argos. For more information about this software, please contact your account executive. To close the preview, go ahead and click Close. Next, we will talk about the Hire One menu. eVisions and Hire One have established a partnership to integrate their industry-leading One Disperse refund management system with the IntelleCheck payment processing solution 3.0 and above. This solution allows users to issue refunds to students electronically and does not require any special IT projects. The Hire One menu allows us to manage cardholders. Click the Hire button and log in using your credentials. We can narrow the results by specifying a date range, name, or ID type. I'm going to accept the defaults and return all cardholders. All cardholders are now displayed below. Only those with an enabled status will have payments processed by Hire One. To resend a card, select a user with an enabled status and click the Resend button. Next, we will go over to troubleshooting tips that answer many common issues. If while trying to process checks, the message, "There are no payments to print," pops up, first check the log file and verify that the log file says EDI next to release at the top, as figured here. This confirms that the eVisions version is being used and not the Banner baseline version. Next, confirm that lines were written to the .list file in the log file. That's highlighted here. If lines were written to the .lis file, check with your administrator to make sure that you have permissions to the bank code. Not having proper permissions will produce this message when there are payments to print. If you continue to have issues, you may contact eVisions for further assistance. If there were no lines written to the .lis file, something may have went wrong during a Banner process. Verify if the update process was run after the last check run. Then confirm that invoices in Banner are ready to process. I also want to point out the knowledge base again. You can search for many common issues and errors here that may help you resolve the issue. If you still have problems, then please feel free to open a help desk ticket and one of our techs will be happy to assist you. This knowledge base has many articles that can be very helpful to help you troubleshoot the issue and help you get issues solved faster. So please remember to utilize it if you have any problems. We have now come to the end of the end user portion of IntelleCheck. The remainder of the training will focus on the administrative side. If you are an end user and not involved in the administration of IntelleCheck, you can drop off at this point. However, you may find the information presented in the next section useful. Having an understanding of the functions and tasks handled by the administrators will enable better communication between the two roles. Now let's continue on to the administrator section of IntelleCheck. After selecting the Administration button, there are two buttons, Configuration and Database. The Database button is used to install the initial IntelleCheck objects, modify the database, and upgrade the database version. The Configuration button is used for the administration of IntelleCheck. I'm going to go ahead and click on the Configuration button and then log in. If this is the first time you are logging into the Configuration menu, use the eVisions username. This can be used for the initial configuration to set the proper permissions for your users. At the top of the screen, we have the Import and Export buttons. The Import button is used to import layout changes that have been made by eVisions. The Export button is used to export the current database elements to a .icc file. A .icc file is the exported file with various IntelleCheck element configurations. When importing more than one ICC file, they must be imported in order from oldest to newest. Next, we'll have a look at the Accounts section. Once you are in the Account menu, select the account code you want to work with. We can see the custom and search and replace fields eVisions has created for the account code. Any changes to this will be imported with a new .icc file that eVisions sends you. The middle of the screen has printer security. Here we can adjust the printers that are accessible to the user. The first checkbox allows users to print to their local printers. Note that users must also be granted permission to utilize this functionality by the Maps administrator. The second checkbox allows users to print to a Maps printer. The printer or printers will need to be selected to appear for the users to print, and by selected that means highlighted blue. At the bottom of the screen, we have the auditing commands that are stored in the auditing tables. The macro button should only be used while being assisted by an eVisions tech. A macro is a file that generally contains specific information or graphics on a check. The next section is Users, where we grant individual and administrative privileges to IntelleCheck users. In the left navigation pane is the list of all users that have been set up and defined on the map server. In the middle pane, we have two tabs, Global and By Account. The Global tab is used for management of administrators in IntelleCheck. To add an administrator, select a user from the left pane and move them to the middle pane. You can add them in a couple ways. You can double-click, drag and drop, or use the blue arrows to move a user over. To select multiple users, hold Shift to select adjacent users and Control to select non-adjacent users. A new user is automatically assigned administrator rights, as shown here. Permissions for IntelleCheck administrator or hire one administrators can be set or removed here. To remove an administrator, move the user from the middle pane to the left pane using any of the methods that we mentioned before, except for double-click. The By Account tab is used to grant permissions to individual users. First, select the account code from the drop-down menu. Granting permissions to an account is similar to adding an administrator. Simply move the user from the left-hand pane to the middle pane. The new user will be granted permissions to process checks and direct deposits by default. Additional permissions can be granted by checking the boxes. Note that printing locally is a permission that must be given and can be used when setting up printer security. This is a useful feature because different printers can be utilized for file copies and check printing. You can check the permissions one by one or use the check/uncheck all option when granting full permissions. Also, a user can be restricted to running only specific reports. Next, we're going to look at the positive pay section. From the positive pay menu, we will select the layout we want to work with from the drop-down list. eVisions will create this module upon purchase, and it should only be modified under the direction of an eVisions tech. Here's where we associate the accounts codes to the layout. If you have added a new bank code that uses the same positive pay layout that you already have established, you will use this section to associate it to the account code. The Output Options tab is where we decide where to save the pay file that is generated. The file can be saved locally or on a network drive. Note that the network path must also be enabled on the map server. A map script can be executed after the file has been created. This script can be anything your IT department can create, a secure FTP or a call to a custom program for sending positive pay files to a bank. Each bank has its own requirement for delivering positive pay files, so your IT staff should contact the bank for information on creating this script. This is a script that cannot be created by eVisions, but we do have documentation that can assist you in creating these scripts. Next, we have the email button. The email layout will be set up for you by eVisions. There will, however, be some customizations that the administrators will need to make. For example, in the Header tab, the From field should be changed, and the Reply To can also be changed. IntelleCheck 3.5.1 and up also allow HTML content in the body of emails. You can use HTML or plain text. Okay, the Attachment tab. Attachments allow you to modify the name of the direct deposit device delivered, set a password for the PDF, and add any additional attachments. In the Body tab, you can modify the subject and body of the email. If you selected HTML for the content, you will need to use the HTML tags for formatting. The Server tab is where you will select the email server to deliver the emails. The server should be set up by your Maps administrator in the Maps configuration. And lastly, we have the Associate Accounts tab. This allows the administrator to select the account codes that will have emails associated with them. You are also able to test email layouts. Click the green play button at the top corner on the right. Depending on which field your email address is saved under, enter your email address here and click OK. You should receive a sample email of how it will appear. Next, we have the Password section. This can be used to add an extra layer of security to certain areas of IntelleCheck. Earlier in our training, we were required to enter an administrative password to generate a positive pay file. A supervisor may want to know every time an employee generates a file, and this is where the password will be set up for something like that. So let's make a new password layout by clicking the plus sign. We're going to type up training in the pop-up window. So now we're going to select an area to password protect. I'm going to go ahead and choose void. We then go ahead and fill in the password we want to use and press enter. It's going to have us recheck the password for security. We then select bank codes that we want to link the password to be associated with. So you can pick 1 or 2 or 3, however many you like. So now the void area is going to require an administrative password to access it. Next, we'll go over the archive section of IntelleCheck. This section of IntelleCheck is used for archiving old checks. This is an important function because it keeps IntelleCheck running optimally. As an example, the finance department might archive their records at the end of the fiscal year, and the accounts payable department might archive their records at the end of the academic year. So let's go ahead and click Archive. And we're going to go ahead and select MN. When selecting payments to archive, there are 2 options: records prior to a specific date and selected batches. When saving archive checks to a flat file, we have the option of outputting as an XML or a PDF. XML is better for the structure of the information, and PDF is good for presenting the data. Using the XML option will require an XML viewer to view or print the files, but the XML format requires significantly less space to store than the PDF option. A PDF is typically 4 times larger than an XML, but it is much easier format to view. We'll go with the Archive Payments PDF by unchecking the Archive Payments XML for this training. A PDF archive can be saved in 2 ways, as an individual file or a single file. Individual files will create a PDF for every payment, while a single file will create one PDF for all the payments being archived. Below, we have the options to archive audit details and to purge archive records. Be aware that after purging records from the database, only file copies of these checks that you've archived will be available. And lastly, we have the option to encrypt data. The checks contain sensitive information, and this option allows us to protect that information. Each time the file is accessed, the password will be required. Make sure that the password is not forgotten or lost. IntelleCheck does not store this password, and thus it cannot be recovered. Next, we will talk about Hire 1. Typically, only one Hire 1 configuration will exist and will be selected by default. In Hire 1, we have 2 tabs, Queries and Configuration. The first tab is Queries. Hire 1 uses SQL statements to get user information from the Banner database. The results can then be used to issue cards. The Preview button executes the SQL statement and returns our results. From the results, we select Students to enable and click Deliver to create a file. If we click the Query Builder button, a window will pop up to enter the general information for the query. Hovering over an entry field will provide a hint for the field at the bottom of the window. All of the parameters entered in the Query Builder window are used to create the SQL script. In the Configuration tab, we select the accounts to associate with the template. The next section is Imaging, where we can transfer file copies to a third-party imaging system. The way imaging works is the PDF file copies are created and saved to a specific directory on a server. The images are then uploaded to the imaging system using the command to execute batch file. From the imaging menu, select the configuration you want to work with from the drop-down list, which I've already done. We have 2 tabs, Parameters and Associate Accounts. Under Parameters, the administrator has the option to force imaging each time payments are processed. We also have the option to select the document types to image. The next item is the command to execute. This is where we enter the name of the batch file that your IT staff can create. The script can FTP the file to a certain location or perform any other functionality the IT staff sees necessary. If the batch file requires any parameters, they can be entered in the command parameters box. This is a script that cannot be created by eVisions, but we do have documentation that can assist you in creating these scripts. We also have the option to disable PDF encryption. The second tab, Associate Accounts, will allow administrators to select what accounts will have imaging associated with them. The Settings button should only be used when directed by an eVisions technical support resource. We have now come to the end of training. Before I close, I would like to mention about the Maps Administrator training. If you're a Maps Administrator, you may find it useful. It will show you how to set up resources such as connections, users, and printers. Also, eVisions now has the ability to add United States Postal Service intelligent mail barcodes to the mailer portion of checks and direct deposit advices. These barcodes allow you to take advantage of mailing discounts provided to USPS customers. For additional information, please refer to our IntelleCheck 3.5.3 release guide. Please submit a help desk ticket if you would like eVisions to add intelligent mail barcodes to your payment layouts. Okay guys, thank you for attending everyone and have a great day.